Hello, everyone, and welcome to a rather strange edition of Together We Write. This time, we're going to be working on a process map, and I'm probably going to do a couple sessions this week just because there's a lot going on getting back into spring break. And so, we have a little thing a little bit different here. I'm going to try this. It's been a while since had the camera pointed at something other than my goofy self. What I'm going to do here is going to be writing up on this Word document here, but in our little inset here, I'm going to be going through sort of the process of recording and documenting what I'm doing during this writing process. And so it may seem a little bit off. There's going to be lots of long pauses and lots of odd uh, you know, scribbling and note taking, and probably more than a little doodling. But I'm trying to go through and model what this looks like. So if you're in our copy editing and workflow class, this is how it might go. Now, I'm going to do a somewhat shorter version, do maybe an hour long, and I'm actually going to work on a writing process that I'm trying to get off my plate here. It's just a book proposal. Just it should be a short one. It's not going to be an extensive because it is for a short book format. But I want to put something together, and I've already drafted this a little bit to be perfectly honest. So I have a good idea of what I'm going for. But the way my earlier draft, which is tucked away over here somewhere, it's a little bit academic sounding, and I want based on the books that I would like to pitch a volume in. It's a little bit more informal and to be frank, enjoyable. So I hoping to get this accepted, but we'll see. All right, so it's coming up on 2 o'clock now. I want to be mindful of the time. In fact, I'm going to see if I can get a timer up here. In fact, I'll just go ahead and put my phone up rather than having one more. Um, but I just want to make sure I have an idea of what the timing is. Let's see. Okay. So what I want to do here now, there's a couple of things. Okay, we're at 2 o'clock here. Now we're starting up. We're officially starting up another edition of Together We Write. A little bit later than usual. Normally we start at about 1:30, but trying setting things up here. Every little move of the camera and microphone requires a little bit of finagling here. So, all right. So I'm. All right, this should be interesting. Process map. Okay. So what I'm looking for is um, you know, what am I doing exactly? What is my process? So what I'm going to do once I start, I'm just going to start making a. And it's really hard to do this while writing by hand. I just discovered. What is my process? Okay. So what I'm doing here, the ambition is to identify to lay out a uh, the process that I typically use to write, and try to identify any areas where I could improve on, right? To just to make this writing process better for myself. Now, the argument keeps coming up as I've been thinking about this week is, what do we mean by improvement? Okay. And I want to be clear, this is not to micromanage your process as an instructor. That's not what this is. What it is, however, is really thinking about how you write. What are some of the areas that I feel that I could that really frustrate? What am I stumbling on? like and I have a good sense of what that is already because I've done this several times before, either formally or informally. So I have a good idea, but I want to go through. I'm looking at the blank page. I've got a kind of a rough idea of what I'm looking at, but excuse me. So for the next hour or so, I'm just going to go through and write. Now, excuse me. In fact, I might have to pause this and go get some water in a minute. One second. Goodness, excuse me. Hello again. I think I successfully interrupted it. Hopefully, it'll start again, but I may have to do a little bit of editing. We'll start from scratch. Hi, my name is Chris Berzicki, and this is another edition of Together We Write. This week, we're focusing on the copy editing and workflow course, where we are in the process of conducting a process map. And this may be a familiar exercise. I've done similar things in several other courses and at several institutions, but where I really enjoyed one of the reasons I really enjoy doing this is it is a much more visual form of thinking, which is how I prefer things. It may not be ideal for everyone, especially if you're, sometimes when it comes to drawing, even sketching or doodling, that can um, be a turnoff for some folks. But this really isn't a drawing exercise or sketching, but it really is thinking about your process in ways of like how do you break it down into some sort of format where you can easily identify where your strengths are and where some areas that you can improve upon. Like and this is not to make your process look identical to some quote unquote ideal process, right? Or how it should look like. If you're watching this, chances are that you've already been inundated by a number of instructors telling you how to write, and this is not what we're here for. We're really at this point thinking about, okay, how can you write the best way that you can? Okay, and so for all of us, it's going to be a little different. Um, so what we're going to do here in this hour or so is I'm going to go through the process of creating a process map. So I'm going to take a little bit of time writing. I've got a blank page here. I've got an idea of what I'm going to write. To be perfectly honest, I had already started a draft of what I'm going to put together, but I want to sort of go through, start over from scratch, give it another try, give it some kind of a fresh take. A little bit more awake than I was yesterday when I was putting this draft together. So I do have. It'll be interesting to see the differences. But anyway, so what I'm expecting to see are some distractions, right? Knowing how I write, I know I want to pay attention to, okay, how long does it take before I start to get distracted? How long does it take before I start to, edit as I'm writing, which is another stumbling block. So I'm doing a little bit of analysis here of my own work. Again, this is not to make my writing look like anyone else's or any other method that is probably better off. It's kind of too late for that in my case. But for y'all, I hope this is a helpful exercise. And before I start going on, I should mention now the reason for doing this isn't just personal. It's also to begin thinking about how writers are, what makes writers such good project managers? What makes us good at seeing like taking a wide angle lens of any given process and seeing where things can start to fall apart, where things going running smoothly, but also how can things be improved. I this is beyond the scope of what our time here to really get into why I think this is the case. But in my experience, people in my family, not even so much myself, but people I've known, work situations, professional situations where you've had copy editors, designers, writers in there from brainstorming through publication. They're in there every step of the way. And so the reason for that is, as I mentioned, because for whatever reason, designers, writers, creative practitioners can have a unique take on things. Okay, maybe it is because we are not as driven by hyper efficiency and we're able to see things in different angles. I'm not exactly sure, but we are involved in the process and we are valuable in that process. And so, one of the reasons that we're doing this is to start thinking about process and then how do we identify that. So, drawing out a process map is just one way, right? And it's really scrutinizing and recording. What we're doing here is a very, very shortened version of this. It's very contrived. Doing this for streaming, which involves a whole nother layer of things, but I'm going to try my best to just demonstrate how this works. So I've got my blank page here, and I've got my note-taking pad here. And so what I'm just going to be doing for the next, say, it's 2:10, for the next 40 minutes or so, I'm just going to write. And I'm going to jot down as many notes as I can think of. It may take me a little bit of while to get in the swing of things, but that's okay, right? It may take even a couple tries before this is successful. So let's see how it goes. All right. So I've got my clock here as well. So I'm timing this to see how long it takes. Okay, start. And I will try to remember to write through this as I go through. So title, I start with my title, then my name. Okay, I'll just maybe make a label of this. Okay. So I'm gonna pause within a minute. what I'm doing here is just drafting, right? I'm really, let's call it, I'm free writing slash drafting. Okay. So I'm skipping the free writing process here for no real reason other than, even though this is sort of free writing, it's sort of somewhere in between. Like I'm not really putting anything solid together, but just throwing out some things that come to mind. In fact, so it's going to be a little bit nonsensical. Any origins? So I'm not even checking dates here. I'm just spitballing here, trying to get some things out on the page. All right. So I've checked my phone. Let's just check my email there for a second. All right. So I guess what I am starting to lean into here a little bit more is free writing. I'm just kind of like trying to draw from what I know or remember from that time and just rolling out some things here and um, seeing seeing what happens, right? It isn't a whole lot right now. It's not all that impressive, but this is how writing happens, folks. 81 tech start to edit one. Overload. Oh. I can't remember the exact name. It's a longer name here. Edit again. Okay, so the first stage is really free writing. I'm just gonna own it. Pausing. So now, if I were doing a really comprehensive workflow analysis, I would also be thinking about the tools I'm using. So I'm using pen and paper here for the notes, but I'm using Word. The reason for this, for example, is my keyboard here is yes, a little bit distracting, but it's got a weird. I tend to hit Control U instead of Control I when I'm trying to italicize something, which um, isn't the fault of the keyboard necessarily, but maybe the placement has to get moved around a little bit. So, but I am using Microsoft Word. so that's not bad. So we're looking at at the 15-minute mark, thereabouts, about 14 and a half. I got about 219 words with the title. So we're talking about 200, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here, 210 words. Okay, so that's not too bad. All right. Could do better. All right, so again, what I'm just doing here is doing a little bit of free writing. I'm going to do this for about, I'm going to give it another 15 minutes or so, go through, and then sort of jump ahead a little bit and go through the next stage of the process. So I'm doing free writing for, let's get about 30 minutes. Pauses. Now with a couple minutes, only a few minutes left, I want to get into the what my anticipation of this, how this book will look. Now, looking at other volumes in this series, this is, by the way, the Boss Fight books series. You know, really small, pocket-sized little volumes. Nothing. Um, you know, it's not a slog by any stretch of the imagination. But what I really like about these is um, the way the writers are given freedom to approach the subject in very unique ways. Like this Baldur's Gate 2 by Matt Bell has very little academic writing in it. It's not to say that it's not sophisticated. But it's very easy to read. It's very informative, but it's also does a lot of work from within the game. Talks about the player's experience while describing the game and sort of situates it in a much more personal way. And what I like about this Galaga, for example, here it's almost like a diary broken up into stages. So in each of these stages is just a little snippet of, trivia, personal information, almost like a diary of the author here, Michael Kimball. So what I'm trying to do is put a proposal together for Ultima 4, which is a game that has similar significance. I've written about it before and would really like an opportunity to kind of take the same approach rather than, uh, writing about it from strictly a historical standpoint or why this game is significant. Also use it as a way to talk about virtues in games. So what I want to be doing is taking a much more authoritative voice, much more assertive, and describe in specific terms what exactly my proposal is all about. Like, what will it look like? Edit again. Throw another pause in there as well. I have not, however, checked my email, so that's a plus. So I have a computer pop up there. I don't know. Just kind of making a note to myself. Let's see. Note to self. I think the Baldur's Gate one is a little good. Let's see, this is 125 pages. It's good to have a little model like this. I got about 1 minute left. So so there's a few distractions in there. Not too bad though. All right. I think I'm going to be good there. We're at about 30 minutes here. So at 30 minutes, I have about 410 words. Not too shabby. It's about 400 words, 30 minutes. So stop. 400. Okay, so that's not pretty good. So I average about 200 words for every 15 minutes. It's not too shabby. Could be better, I guess, but that's a comfortable pace, right? I'm doing a little bit of editing along the way, not too bad. I, that's pretty solid. So I'm gonna go over here, and I got my free writing, 30 minutes. Like thing about free writing is you're supposed to write just straight through without too many pausing. So it's like pauses, or let's do 5. Checked email once. Let's see what else. Everything else is pretty standard. Like I'm not going to be too concerned about. It's really that editing that I would like to eliminate. What I would love to do is just start free writing and get everything out there. So let's move on to the drafting stage. Okay, so now I'm trying to make this a little bit more polished. So I'm going to start a new one. And there's going to be more details here because free writing is messy. There's not a whole lot to really think about. But when it comes to drafting, this is where I really need to break it down a little bit more comprehensively. So actually, before I even draft, the first thing I'm going to do is outline book proposal, Ultima 4. I'm not too worried about the time at this point. Let's see. We should have an overview, intended audience. Intended audience, existing works, about author. Let's see, what else? Now I've got to kind of look up. So I'm doing an outline first. And what I'm also doing here is, okay, what goes into a book proposal, right? I'm going to do an overview. I'm going to do the intended audience, existing works, about author. There should be a little bit more, I think, in the overview. So I'm going to go ahead and look up what we are looking for what's a standard book proposal. Okay, and I'm actually going to go ahead and look up. I'm going to look up. Okay, so we got the Boss Fight Books site here. And anyone with an interest in games, an interest in how they're played, how they're made, how they're talked about, who they're for. And so it's telling me a little bit of something what my intended audience should look like, right? Their opportunities as an art form, where they've been and where they're going. We think games are worthy of our respect, curiosity, and criticism. Okay. How are the books released? Each book is released simultaneously in paperback and as a DRM-free ebook. So some excerpts here. Okay. See, what's cool about this is like they do books about, I said showed Galaga, Metal Gear Solid. I think there was one is kind of cool. Minesweeper is in here somewhere. So they're not necessarily they're games that are significant, but in very different and unique ways. I mean, Bible adventures. What? Okay. Um, where are we at? About Us pitch submissions. And I know their submission is going on right now, March 15th through April 30th. So that's 4 days ago. Here's what we want: a pitch that gives a strong, clear sense of what you do with the book and who you are. So it's really like, what would you do with this format? Okay, how would you, as I mentioned before, this format is very unique. It's um, slightly academic, slightly commercial, but very, very personable, right? They're very reflective of the author. So that's going to be a challenge for me because that's not, that's typically the way I write. A pitch that gives us a strong, clear sense of what you do with the book and who you are, links to or attachments of other writing you've done, a sample chapter or section from the proposed book. Okay, so my what I'm going to do is give them a piece that I wrote about the game several years ago, and or maybe even an article about a similar game to just give it a bit more of a um, give a sense of how I write non-academically, right? Please have your full name and the name of the game in the subject line. So I'm thinking this really only needs to be an email. If your email has attachments, please use doc, PDF formats and send them as attachments and not as a shared docs. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. Not necessarily that long, and it does not to be as polished as the actual book. Your job, again, is to give us a strong sense of what you do with the book, right? So again, there's a little bit more agency here for the author, which I really like. I think this is a really cool project if it were to be accepted. Game genres and franchises we haven't explored yet, or from new angles. So that might be a stumbling block. That might be something like I said. There's already Baldur's Gate 2 has already been done, so there might be a the argument could be made that, well, we've kind of done something like this before, but I am also approaching it from a very new angle, so that's something I got to think about. So I'm going to start to sort of populate this overview, about the author. That seems to be something that is important, so I'm going to actually put that here. So what I'll do here is do an overview, and I'm going to make this our outline. What? Come on. What's going on here? There we go. All right, nonfiction only. You're welcome to pitch books on newer games, just nothing that came out in the last year. Other hints: we would love to see some pitches in game genres we haven't explored yet. We get extra excited when you show us that you are serious about ambitious, thoughtful, researched writing, and you write in a voice that is not overtly academic or jargony. That's what we're looking for. The best books show a lot of curiosity. What are some big questions that you are curious to explore in the writing process? How might your book about this game be a window into a bigger topic? How is this game in conversation with other games, films, books, etc.? What kind of sources? Sorry, I'm reading this over here. Something we'd like to do. Sometime we'd love to do another book in the Spelunky vein, in which a game creator writes about their own game, or which someone who worked in a particular role on a big game tells a unique story. So, to be perfectly fair, they're love to do a visual graphic novel style exploration of a game in the tradition of understanding comics. So that's something I could actually pull off, because that's we could do a travel journal, right? That would be kind of cool. So that's something I'm gonna be thinking about. Okay. So I'm going to be travel journal style. Okay. And so the reason this is actually kind of cool is um, because the books that come with the game also have this very journalistic sort of vibe to them, right? So I'm doing the outline, and I'm going to that's going to start to I'm going to take the free write and put it into the outline a little bit. I'm going to do illustrate hand drawn. So what I might want to do is actually put together an illustration. I might actually want to take a portion of the game and show them what a section might look like, right? So that might be kind of interesting. All right, so this would be it seems already starting to sound like a much more complicated project than I had even thought yesterday. So I'm glad I'm doing this. Drafting. All right. So we've got about 9 minutes left. All right. So let's leave it at that. Let's do the draft. Let's say I've put the draft together. In fact, let's just go to what's my other version here. Let's see if I got not even. I think I did this for almost the exact same amount of time and I only got about 200 words. So it does help to have that I went and thought through this some already. But here we've got, and again, this is more of a historical look, and I'm not entirely thrilled about this. So a lot of what, if I could take this and turn it into a short paragraph about this long, maybe that would be okay. But what I'm really going to lean into here is this travel journal style that I think would be pretty awesome. All right, well, we'll see. I mean, there's nothing saying it will be accepted for sure. So, but I'll give it my best shot. So if I do my draft, and then I typically, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here because we're kind of done with that part. So once I'm done with the draft, then I know I'm going to give it a couple days, 2-3 days. Okay. Then I'm going to revise and submit. Okay, so my goal, let's see if I go back to, and this is not necessarily required, but if I'm going to extend, what I'm going to try to do here is extend this to my April 30th is the deadline, so I should have plenty of time for this, right? So if I'm thinking about April 30th, I want to submit. I want to give it. I'm going to give it a little extra time. So I'm looking here, April 30th. That's Tuesday. Okay, I want to submit no later than the. I'm going to do it the 22nd, April 22nd. Because I don't want to. I want to submit it on a Friday as everyone's out, getting ready for the weekend. I want to submit it here. Everyone's starting. Maybe I want to do it on a Tuesday. So let's do the 23rd. All right. So again, I don't need any of this time frame necessarily when I'm doing my map. I'm just thinking about the process here. Now, as I'm drafting, as I'm outlining, what was I doing there? I had my title. I did an overview. Let's see, like a handful of bullets. Okay. So I had a little bit of a. What was weird is tabbing it wasn't working correctly. I'm not sure why that worked. But again, if I was thinking about workflow, which is a little bit more focused on the tools that we're using, I would be thinking along those lines. But if I were to spend a little bit more time drafting, we would really get into the thick of things and start to see, okay, how often am I editing? Now, since I'm streaming this and recording it at the same time, I could go back and just look at how I'm writing, right? And I could just see there are probably some things that I could look at And maybe, oh, wouldn't that be an awful stream? Someone talking about while watching their writing. Who knows? Maybe drafting and then revision. Revision would really reveal some things, I'm sure, but I can start to see how this comes together. All right. So let's see. I'm going to start a new one here. And I'm going to start to actually draw some of this stuff out. So I'm going to do some shapes. Now I could do this by hand. So I'm going to start free writing. 30 minutes. Okay. What else did I have in here? It can take any shape. Um, be mindful that it doesn't matter how you. Uh, this is for you. This is for your use, not for anyone else. So it's worth keeping that in mind. You gonna let me move this? Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna say I had actually done a. I'm gonna be perfectly honest with myself here. I'm gonna do a pre-draft. I did that for about an hour yesterday. And that was me getting some more concrete ideas out. And so what I'm starting to discover here, and here I'll actually, you can see, oops. Just in even taking a step back from the actual writing, I'm starting to think, okay, well, maybe this is something I have to get out of the way first. Maybe I have to go in and do a little bit of preliminary research. Okay. Call it prelim. All right. Because again, this is something I was working on yesterday. Free writing. And I don't remember any of the things that I had done here. I did a lot of one of the reasons I didn't write a whole lot is because I was actually doing, looking around online, looking at my own old writing, what I had to say about it, and how I could connect those things. Um, so even just looking at these two stages, if I see, copy it, outline, and I didn't do this for too long, but what was revealed in that outline was this idea. Actually, outlining. See, when I did that was, jeez. And then what I have here is, let's see if I can. You'll let me do it? There you go. Doesn't need to be fancy. I might go ahead and, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So I'm starting to come up with just, again, and this is taking a very broad look. I'm not even looking at any of the details. This is, again, be mindful that this is just a kind of a test run, demonstrating some of the broad concepts that we're looking at when we're doing a process map. But again, just in the distinction in, not taking too many notes, not involved in any process that really is I would not have thought that free writing doesn't turn out a lot. The But when I stepped back and started drawing this out, I was like, oh well, I noticed that the draft I did yesterday took longer. Why did it take longer? Oh, because I did research already. All right, so I have to add. At that point, I have to add that in there. It just makes more sense. All right, and then once I started doing the outline, I said, okay, I should probably look. I knew that the researchers call or that the publishers call had a certain criteria it was looking for. So let's take a look at that. And from looking at that criteria and thinking about what I had already written in the outline, um, something I could, this helped edit that outline and tweak it a little bit. So I've got something that looks a little bit like this, these hand drawn illustrations. So again, just thinking about the publisher. Now, here's an area where it's kind of hard to cover this at this point. Would I have come to that same conclusion had I, had already looked, if I had the publisher's call already up and I'd already looked at it in this last hour or whatever, would the results have been the same? I don't know. Um, changing the outline a little bit. So now what I have to do is um, do some illustration, right? I'm going to do a sample section. It's not going to be long, but that's the thing I'm going to need. All right, and so now from that point, I'm going to have, then I can go to, what you doing here? So then what I'm going to do is, that's going to be my draft. Why am I doing it that way? All right. Okay. So now then revision is going to be a little bit interesting because I'm going to need I first need to spell illustration right. Then I have the draft, and then I got to revise it. And so that should be interesting. So again, this whole process revealed to me in just this sort of shortened version. Now, ideally, I would be spending a little bit more time involved in a process that's a little bit more worthy of examination. Free writing is not as not going to turn up too much there, but as soon as we started getting into things like, oh wait, the reason the free writing went so well, just by looking at it, is because I had done some preliminary research. Maybe that's an important stage. Maybe rather before I start free writing, I should load up on some information, see what's out there. The outline's helpful, but I didn't spend a whole lot of time on that. Went on this, and then it gave me a direction. So that's just one example. All right. So that is how to put together a process map. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is write this down because I don't want to lose. By tomorrow, I will have forgotten everything I just. Where are you? Goodness gracious, where's the text box? Give it. There we go. All right, whatever. Okay, so and so forth and so forth. So again, another tool that's subjective. personal, not for anyone else's use, but if you are watching this for copy editing and workflow, this is kind of what we're looking for. Nothing fancy. Okay, it's just and in fact, I'm going to put this up in our Teams chat just so everyone can see how what I'm talking about. All right, so I think that about does it. All right, I'm gonna probably do another session on Friday. If you have any questions about this, feel free to give me a shout. Otherwise, if you're watching this, thank you for watching this. This is again, Together We Write, a almost regularly weekly broadcast live from University of Wisconsin Green Bay, and it is made possible by a generous grant from the Center for the Advancement of Teaching and Learning. And I think that's about it. Take it easy, y'all.